The following is a presentation of Voyescape Media. You can find all of our travel podcasts from around the world at voyescape.com.
Welcome to the Travel and 10 podcast. This week we are heading to the South Pacific, to a place that's been in the news a lot over the last few months. I know a place, Tim, both me and you have been to many times, one of our favorite spots, to Maui. And I understand you've been in Maui not too long ago, post all that's happened there. If you maybe want to talk a little bit about your most recent experience.
Yeah, absolutely, David. Maui is a place that is truly special to me. When I first started out as a travel writer, it was one of the first big destinations that I visited, and I was just absolutely knocked off my feet. I mean, I loved everything about it. I mean, the aloha spirit, the fact that it brings together so many different elements, beach and mountain, and and so much good food and all this all in one place. And I was absolutely heartbroken when just a few months ago, these wildfires ripped through Lahaina, which honestly, if you asked me beforehand, what's your favorite little town in the world, I would have said Lahaina. It was absolutely my favorite place maybe in the whole world. I've been to almost 150 countries. Fire destroyed much of the town, but I also want to say the island is open for business. That Maui, I just heard from a friend of mine, a good friend of mine, who lives on the island, and she said, please get the word out. We want the tourists back. We want people coming back to Maui. Lahaina is, it's a bit of it's a no-go for sure, because a lot of the town isn't there, and there are many heartbreaking stories, and I won't dwell on them, but all of the other wonderful places to visit on this island are there. You've got Kaanapali, which is just a 5 or 10 minute drive north of Lahaina, with so many beautiful resorts. You've got Napili and Kapalua. You've got Wailea and Kihei. All of these other places are open for business, and hoping that people will come back to Maui and enjoy all of the wonderful things that this island has to offer. So anyway, that's my monologue, I guess. I don't know. How do you feel? You've been to Maui a few times. You've had wonderful experiences, David.
I have. I love Maui. I mean, from the surfing to the snorkeling to great places to stay. It's a fantastic place, and for me living on the West Coast, it's always been an easy destination to get to, and still get to that like great sort of tropical beaches and beach experience. I don't want to dwell too much on the wildfires, but I imagine a lot of people are curious, like how much when you're there now. I mean, how much can you see the impact of that beyond Lahaina? I mean, has a lot of the landscape been impacted by the wildfires? A lot of the island that you're seeing sort of the after effects, or what's it like?
It really was concentrated on Lahaina. So Lahaina is there is an area just at the very north end of Lahaina that is still intact, that you can still visit, that is still the same as it always was. The rest of Lahaina is basically gone. But they're devastated. But the rest of the island is the same. It's exactly the same. If you've ever been to Maui, all those other places, again, from Hana to Wailea to north of, on the other side of Lahaina, everything is exactly the same. And so, when you drive there, and I wasn't sure, what I would see when I went back, and you drive from the airport, and the first place that I stayed was in Kaanapali, and they route you around on the bypass that was built before the fires, and you could basically go around Lahaina. You don't see very much of it. You will not be allowed into Lahaina, but once you get north of Lahaina, again, it's all exactly as it was before the fires. The fires only touched a very small part of the island, a very special part of the island. But yeah, so it's It was devastating for a very small percentage of the island, but the rest of the island is the same Maui that you remember. You know,
And in terms of, I mean, from what I remember during our trips to Maui, I mean, Lahaina was it was filled with beautiful restaurants and boutiques. It's where a lot of the locals lived.
yeah,
But there wasn't actually like it wasn't where a lot of the hotels or things necessarily were ever. I mean, that
yeah,
wasn't necessarily a place you were going to stay.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. It's
what
true. There were only a couple hotels in Lahaina. Most of the hotels were in the kind of the hotel zone in Kaanapali north of Lahaina, but lots of great galleries and boutiques, and shops, and then, of course, the famous banyan tree right in the middle of town.
is that still
You
there?
know,
Do you know? Or
uh, I'm not sure, to be honest. I'm not
yeah,
sure how well it survived. I the last report that I checked, which was not recently, it had survived, but I'll be honest, I'm not 100% sure. And it'll be, I mean, they're rebuilding. The town will come back. There will still be a Lahaina. It's not gone. But yeah, the Lahaina that we get, we'll see. We'll see. I'm optimistic. I think it's going to be good, but yeah, I'm not 100% sure about Banyan Tree. Yeah,
now on your most recent trip there, it was post fires, and
yeah,
I know you had a chance to stay at a resort. You were telling me somewhere that you've been a few times, kind of a favorite of yours. Do you want to talk a little bit about some of your favorite places to stay?
sure, absolutely. I mean, I love this place. It's called Napili Kai Beach Resort. It is north of Lahaina, so you drive from the airport, you drive out to West Maui, and then you keep going almost to the end of the road, and it was the very first place that I stayed on my very first trip to Maui. So I've been maybe a dozen times now to Maui, and so it holds a special place in my heart. It was really the place that made me fall in love with Maui. And I stayed there on my most recent trip, and it is um, everything it was and more. People say it's kind of like summer camp for adults, and it really is. They had daily events. They have the largest. I think it's called the Hanky Panky Pool. It's the largest hot tub, in Maui. So everybody kind of gets together and chats, and talks about their day in the hot tub. And they had a putting competition with, I don't want to get this wrong, maybe 50 cent or dollar mai tais, and everybody comes together. And it's got a beautiful beach and beautiful suites. It's right on, the crashing waves of the Pacific, and you can see across to the islands, to Molokai and Lanai across the way. But I think it's just the spirit of that hotel that makes it special, and it was every bit as special on my last visit just a few months ago as it was, many years ago, more than 10 years ago when I first visited the island. Do you have any favorite spots?
Yeah, there's a few places that we've stayed that we've really enjoyed. I mean, you talked a little bit about Kanapale Beach being it's really kind of the center of a lot of the big international resorts. We've stayed at a number of them there. The Westin was great, but probably my favorite was at the far end of the beach, the Sheraton Black Rock,
Yeah,
because it gets you closest to the best snorkeling in that area. Right out in front of the Sheraton, you go straight in, and you'll often see sea turtles. You'll see some great coral, tons of marine life. Every night they've got this sort of torch set up out on the rocky peak at the point there that they do a torch lighting ceremony every night, and then often some divers who dive off into the ocean there as well. So that's a great spot. The Ritz Carlton also on
yeah,
another part of the island. A great spot. They've got a great kids club there, and also a great marine life sort of educational center built right into the resort, and some great snorkeling there as well, and definitely snorkeling, surfing, for me that's the reasons you go to Maui, and so finding a hotel where you can go straight from your room right into the water, and be snorkeling a few minutes later, that's always top priority for me when we stay.
absolutely. And I mean, I've stayed at all three of those resorts, and they are all fantastic in their own way. Ritz Carlton also has a cultural ambassador, which is very cool. So you can actually go out for a tour with a indigenous Hawaiian person who can talk about the traditions, and all of the significance of the land and sea in that area, which I absolutely loved. And one other shout out is to the Hyatt in Kaanapali, which is just a beautiful resort. They took the time during pandemic to do extensive renovations. So it's really kind of a reinvented property. They have a lot of wildlife, so you can actually do a little wildlife tour. They have peacocks and swans and all these interesting wildlife, on site, which is really, adds something. And then I don't know if it's every night, but they have this gentleman who's a NASA certified stargazer. I'm sure that's not his actual title, but you can go up on the roof after dark and you can do stargazing with this NASA certified guy I've done it at least 2 or 3 times. Every time it's different. They have these huge telescopes. The position of Maui in the middle of the Pacific Ocean gives it a very gives it kind of this dark sky and this unique aspect on the cosmos. Beautiful hotel, completely reinvented recently, and then this great stargazing experience that they have. So that's another favorite of mine.
In terms of what to do, I know we've both been on a lot of the different sort of sailing excursions that you can do out of Maui. That's something I would definitely recommend for anybody that you've got to go. Book one of there's a bunch to choose from in terms of sailing trips that you can do. I went on one years ago called Gemini Sailing, which was fantastic. You could do some great snorkeling spots. We were filming an episode of either The Bachelor or The Bachelorette when we were there on board,
Great.
so that was good fun.
Were you The Bachelor or no?
Not that season. It's not upcoming season.
All right, yeah.
But I know one that we've both been on as well that I thought was pretty unique and an elevated experience as well was the Pacific Whale Foundation trip. Where not only are you out doing, I'm trying to remember if it was a sailboat or a power boat. Pacific Whale.
I think they have both. I'm not 100% sure, but yeah.
But I mean, the big thing there was very much focused in on conservation and education, and that really in terms of whale watching trips around the world, I certainly found that to be one of the most impressive ones I've ever done.
It was incredible. I've done a couple trips with Pacific Whale Foundation, and most recently, just now on my most recent trip, it was whale season. And I don't think I've ever, I've done a lot of whale watching trips. I love whales. I think that there's, when you're in the presence of an intelligent being like that, there's something that's truly special about being around whales. I've never been on a more incredible whale watching trip. I mean, it was like a ballet around us. We had whales breaching, we had flukes, dozens and dozens of whales all around us. And for the rest of my life, I mean, people call it whale soup, right? Because it's just whales everywhere. For the rest of my life, I'll never forget it. It was truly, truly special. And I mean, when you get to Maui, you want to get on the water, and just being out there and the views back to the island and the views to the neighbor islands as well is an amazing thing. And I think in terms of excursions, when we were off, just in between episodes, I think you mentioned to me like a chicken McNugget type trip to Hana.
We were talking about
fries. Yeah.
That's right. We were talking about the road to Hana, which is a very much an iconic experience. Where you can spend a day driving around one end of the island on this sort of single lane road for much of it, going through waterfalls, going through great scenery. When we were there, we decided there was a company called BioBeetle, where you could rent Volkswagen Beetles that had been converted to run on biofuel, which was made of sort of grease from local restaurants that had been left over. And we thought, we'll take out this more environmentally friendly option for the day, which was fun and it was great, but it did smell like McDonald's French fries everywhere we went around the island for the days.
You're making me hungry. It's dinner time here, and you're making me very hungry, actually. So that sounds heavenly to be honest. But yeah. And talking about food, one of my favorite things to do is to go up country in Maui. So it's away from the beach. It's up on the flanks of the Haleakala volcano, now dormant volcano. And there's this great place called Surfing Goat Dairy where you can go. And I mean, when I went, they had just had a bunch of baby goats that were born. So I think these goats were like a week old or something, and you could actually hold the baby goats, and they were, if you think a puppy is cute, a baby goat is even cuter. I mean, it was so adorable, and they just sort of flop in your arms. Their fur, or whatever it's called, it's just so downy and soft and beautiful. And you just walk around with these baby goats, and they produce this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful goat cheese. And you can do it. I did a tasting. I met the owner, who's a really interesting guy. I won't tell a story, but he's got a very interesting story. Recently purchased the business from the longtime owners, and he's a very, was a businessman for many years, and decided to have a quieter life in Maui, and now runs this really and it's up on the side of the mountain, so the views out over the valley of Maui are absolutely beautiful. So yeah, upcountry in general, there's a lot of things to do up there. It's worth a day trip or even two. But in particular, surfing goat is a great place. So yeah.
And speaking of surfing, you did some surf lessons when you were there as well, didn't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And they were disastrous. I mean, really. I mean, I have a list of things that I am not good at, and it is, it's a pretty long list. There's lots of things I'm not good at. Number one on the list is surfing. I am terrible. I don't have good balance in general, and I've done 3 or 4 surf lessons in my life. They were all terrible. And the first one that I did was on the beach, very first day that I was in Maui. And I could not stand up on for the life of me, I couldn't get up on that board. And I tried, and I tried, and I tried. I mean, it's definitely worth doing. I mean, the Hawaiian kings surfed. Surfing is the ultimate Hawaiian thing to do. And so even if you don't think you're going to be good at it, I recommend it, because you'll get a lot of good stories, and you can tell them over dinner and get some laughs. But it was the first of like 3 or 4 bad surf lessons for me. But you're still out there, you're on the beach, you're in the water, beautiful views, you're taking part in a Hawaiian tradition. So yeah, definitely take a surf lesson. Maybe just manage your expectations.
Do you remember what part of the island you were on for your surf lessons, or where you
Yeah,
went?
I was very close to Lahaina, actually. I think I was on the beach at Lahaina. So, it was we did the lesson first on the sand, and you sort of pop up, and you practice it on the sand, and you think it's going to be good. You're like, okay, great. I mean, nothing's moving. I can just get up on the board, no problem. And then once you get out there, it's a whole different world. It's a whole different thing. And I don't think I actually managed to get up on the wave, but but it was definitely an interesting experience. It was definitely worthwhile. But yeah. Have you done surf lessons before?
A few times, many places around the world, and yeah, I remember at Kanapali Beach. I mean, it's pretty inexpensive that you can rent boards right on the beach there and go out. Although that's probably not the best surfing beach on the island, but for beginners, a good spot to try out. And even if you're not getting up, it's still a ton of fun, and highly recommend. Sure,
it really is. It really is, just to be on the beach in the water and doing kind of the ultimate thing that you can do in a destination. It's definitely worth it. But I've found out I'm very bad at all related things. So like snowboarding, I'm bad at that. I'm okay at skiing. Yoga, which relies on balance, I'm very bad at that. So it was kind of the first of a series of revelations in my life about things that I'm good at.
We have that in common. I think I've gone surfing at probably like 20 of the top surf beaches in the world, and I've maybe stood for a combined 12 seconds in all of those beaches around the world.
Good. I mean, I'm impressed by that. I really am. I mean, that's like 10 seconds more than I have. So yeah, that's actually quite impressive. So yeah.
In terms of final tips, I know we were talking a little bit about, you had a really impactful experience there, sort of, again, relating back to some of what's happened recently on the islands. Do you want to maybe talk a little bit about that to close us out?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So when I was there just a few months ago, I had an opportunity to volunteer with an organization called Hua Manoma Farms. And they are an organization that is actively growing and harvesting and cooking meals for the people that are rebuilding Lahaina. So I spent, I think it was supposed to be a half day. I think I ended up spending most of the day up there, just shopping and just doing anything that they asked me to do. And it was such an interesting experience because on one hand, you felt like you were giving back a little bit to, the people who were doing the real, I had no illusions. I was not an important part, but I was helping the people who were doing the important part. And then also just meeting all the other people who were visiting Maui and talking to them about how they found out about this organization and why they felt it was important to give back. And I think a lot of them said, we love this place, just like me, and we felt like we needed to do something. We couldn't just come and take. We wanted to give back. And maybe that sounds cheesy, but that's how I felt. And, even though it was just one day out of my trip and I was there, a week or more, that felt significant to me. So anyone who goes, you can easily get plugged into Huamanoma Farms or other organizations that are doing something similar. And again, before we wrap up, I just want to say, Maui is open for business and they want people to come. People's jobs depend on it. And they are definitely arms open, welcoming people to come back. So, if you're planning a vacation, definitely go to Maui. It is every bit as incredible as it always was. Yeah.
Well, we'll definitely put the link to that in the show notes where people, if they want to have a chance getting that volunteer experience, it sounds like super impactful and meaningful thing that you had a chance to do there. And hopefully some of those tuning in will have a chance to participate in some of those volunteer activities that are so important in rebuilding the island. But probably the most important thing people can do is just visit, right? And that tourism is such a huge, important part of the economy there. And, really so many locals who rely on it. And, so making 100%. Sure that, people who love Maui are getting back and spending some time there for sure.
100%. That's what everybody said to me. Just come back. Number one thing is just come back. So, yeah. So that's
all right.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Tim. We'll be back next week with another episode. And again, I encourage everybody to, check out all of our travel podcasts from around the world at voyescape.com. And if you have a chance, if you could leave us a review, particularly on the, Apple Podcasts and Spotify, it's hugely helpful for people. If you're enjoying the show, enjoying some of the information that we're providing on destinations around the world, if you could take time and, subscribe and drop us a review, that's a huge help as well.
Absolutely. Always a pleasure to chat with you, David. Always fun to talk travel with you, and very much looking forward to next week.
Thanks, Tim.
Thanks, David.
You've been listening to a podcast from the Voyescape Podcast Network. You can find all of our podcasts from around the world at voyescape.com.